Okay, here we go. Where is it? Yeah.
Have MMOs become less social over the years? Have the unbreakable bonds of camaraderie forged in failure been replaced with systems to support solo players? Has the MMO genre gone from a connected, chatty community to an antisocial mass?
Yeah.
And if so, how did this change happen? Let's discuss. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes, and this is MMO Opinion, a bite-sized show where I dive into the issues plaguing the MMO landscape today and then give my opinion on them. Drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more MMO discussion. Ring the bell so you don't miss
This place looks like scuffed winter spring.
Single future video. And as usual, a big thank you to my supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep this channel alive and allow me to make videos. More on this at the end. Today I'd like to address what seems to be a very commonly held belief. The idea that the MMORPG genre has become less social. This view that players talk less, don't communicate as much as they used to back in the early days of the genre. The idea that connection...
I just logged on and apparently I learned an item.
Connection with other players has been replaced with group finders and efficient gameplay. And I feel that while there is some truth to this, it's not as simple as people like to claim. Now, I like to keep these videos as short as possible, but I also feel the need to cover all the important points in enough detail, and this is a complex topic, so I'd like to
Any
look at...
details he misses, I will pause and then follow up with that detail, as well as a 5-minute tangent.
4 main areas to cover the MMOs are less social argument, and they are 1. The novelty and then death of online societies. 2. The genre popularity boom and the rise of the solo player.
Thank you.
3. The catering of systems to the solo player. And finally 4. The shifting of social interactions to third-party platforms.
That's a very
As always,
good point.
let's begin at the start. Number 1, the novelty and death of the online society. When I talk to older MMO players, especially those who have played during the times of EverQuest, Ultima Online or Asheron's Call, I often hear stories of how they'd stand for hours and just talk to people, how they would enjoy having a hearty debate in-game somewhere, or how they had friends they'd go out of their way to see. And it was amazing because these friends lived on the other side of the planet, and yet in-game they were right next to each other. And that led me to look into the online social side. So let's just look at the dates. Bebo released in 2005, Facebook in 2004, MySpace in 2003, and even MSN Messenger came out in 1999. And many people would run...
I remember I convinced my mom I needed to get a computer so that I could do schoolwork, and the truth was I just wanted it so I could make a MySpace account. It was good times. Computer's right over there.
Home from school to sit on their computer and talk to their friends, because this at the time was novel. Online social media has been with us for around 20 years in a mainstream capacity, but before that, online communication was much more limited. You had internet relay chat rooms, or IRCs, and forums or message boards you had to keep refreshing to check for new posts. They weren't updated live. So when Habitat released in 1987, The Realm Online in 1996, or Ultima Online in 1997, the online social space was given something it wasn't used to. A visual interface that allowed real-time chat. Players could log in and meet others in a virtual world, and this aspect alone was novel enough to be extremely attractive to gamers at the time. If you said to someone in 1997, hey, you can join an online virtual world and talk to tens of thousands of people from all over the planet in real time and even go on adventures with them, that would be an incredible advert for the game.
Yeah, it'd be
and in
badass.
some cases, the game itself, the plot or the adventure, was actually secondary to the social facilitation it allowed. EverQuest is often referred to as the world's prettiest chat room. And it was because the social interaction was such a huge draw for the games that they built content into the games designed to enhance it and rely on it. If many players talking...
That's what I was saying about how people, they were just so happy to be able to talk to other people and interact with other people. That's the only thing that really mattered to them. Like, the other stuff was kind of all irrelevant, and it's like, whatever. Like, what was really special was being able to interact with other people and have that experience.
and communicating was a major draw for your game, then you built in puzzles and challenges and bosses and dungeons that relied on this aspect and encouraged players to do it more. Older players like to remember how long they had to search for a group, or how they'd spend ages trying to do a group quest that was impossible solo, or how you used to become known on your server, and your online reputation wasn't measured by faction reputation or numbers, but by players' actual opinions of you. The older MMOs had the benefit of online socialization being a new, novel, and fascinating game mechanic by itself, and the development leaned heavily into this. If you started on your own, you wouldn't survive long. You'd have to find a guild, talk to people, prove your place, and form bonds. The idea of having
in like vanilla WoW, like most people joined a guild before they were level 20. Now people get max level before they join a guild. Or if they do join a guild, it's one of those bots that just automatically invites people to guilds.
Human beings being essential parts of your story was at the time such a novel gameplay mechanic. But as we know, novelty fades, and something that was groundbreaking at the time quickly becomes the standard. Newer games released: Dark Age of Camelot, RuneScape, World of Warcraft, Anarchy Online. And suddenly the simple pull of you can be social and talk to people in real time wasn't enough. Every online game had that now. They had to do something different to stand out. And if MMOs for so long had been relying on the you must play together, then now the opposite direction was the novel concept. In 2004, two things happened on the internet that would come to shape the world we know today. One was the launch of World of Warcraft, the other was the launch of Facebook. Neither would start as the industry titans they would go on to become, but this was the beginning of the gameplay shift away from social-focused content and to...
I didn't know Facebook. I didn't get Facebook until like way later, so I didn't even know about Facebook back then.
I had no idea. Player. The
I guess
MMO
it was for like
as
college
a genre
kids.
was about to rise sharply in popularity, and this rise would bring with it the problem of the solo player. With the MMO genre gaining popularity, and the gamers currently enjoying it, loving the social aspect of it, developers now faced an issue. As the genre grew and advertising expanded, they knew there would be a large subset of players who wanted to play the game but didn't want to have to team up. This is simple player preference. Sometimes it can be nice to be involved in a game or a subculture without feeling the need to constantly communicate or be involved in the active day-to-day society. I know a lot of older players say to me, if you don't want to be social, then don't play an MMO, and I disagree. Anyone can play an MMO. The allure of the genre is you can have an adventure in another world and be another person. If you choose to play someone who wants to be alone, so be it.
I think that's true and it's not at the same time, right? Because like you can do that, like what he's describing is an RPG. I mean, like, you could play an RPG and do that, but like if you're gonna play an MMORPG, yeah, you play however you want to play. I got no problem if people want to do whatever the hell they want to do. But should the game cater to that? No, it should not. At least not a whole lot. Of course, obviously, every game should have very good solo player content, even for MMOs. Like Mage Tower, for example. 100%, that's great. But that should not be the end-all and be-all. And the game should not be defined around solo content.
Can be fun to be in a living world, even if you don't take part in it. That's your choice. With the increase in popularity and thus players, MMO designers knew they would have many people who wanted to play alone, and they couldn't simply ignore them, because ignoring them would mean less profits, and no company wants that. So now the dilemma happens. The MMO genre had been leaning into the social aspect since its early days, because in those early days it was the genre's greatest strength. But now, attracting the next generation doesn't just mean being social, it means providing content that doesn't need social interaction. Because if you didn't make your game solo friendly and your competitors did, all the solo players would go to their game instead, and in the MMO industry your game lives or dies on its popularity. As much as these social players wanted to keep the game about being social and requiring the social aspect to succeed, the developers had to find a balance. Players of MMOs at the time valued the society and community aspect, and it was this idea...
It's definitely important for there to be a balance. It's 100% a good important thing for there to be a balance. But the thing like with WoW, for example, now is that you can literally hit max level and beat the last boss in the game without making a single social interaction. You can do all of that without talking to a single person. You just click a button. You just click on a button and you're done. That's it. That should not happen. Like, I'm not saying that like you should have to like level, quest with people at like level 12, but I mean, you should have to talk to fucking somebody to beat the last boss in the game, even if it's a story mode.
A world connected through players and not through in-game systems that appealed to them. But game designers and shareholders were looking at the rapidly emerging solo market and the growth of gaming in general and the popularity of offline games and thinking, how can we appeal to that demographic as well? Because if we don't, another MMO will. This would be the design philosophy shift that would ultimately end up diverting MMOs away from what they started as, online social hubs with a game attached,
right here,
and toward what we know them as today, online adventure games with the ability to be social.
That's about right. I think WoW had this happen in around, I think somewhere around 2009. Like, that's whenever WoW really started to shift into making the game more accessible for casual players and making it to where the social elements that previously were considered flavor are now considered annoying or an inconvenience. And that's where they added in Dungeon Finder. They added in, like Raid Finder later on. And so these things that used to add flavor and make the game special are now looked at as just being bad.
Both versions of design provide the same basic elements. The early heavily focused on player interaction because it was the novel's strength, and now design is focused more on gameplay, and socializing is a distant second. With this boom, game developers not only added in content that catered to solo players, changing the games to more closely resemble the single-player RPGs of the time, they also added in several in-game systems that allowed solo players to compete in and complete the same content as social players without needing to do any actual socializing. The most well-known example of this is probably the group finder. You see, before, clearing hard, high-level content in old MMOs pre-group finder wasn't just about getting to the content. It was about finding the group first. This demanded socialization. You needed to have a guild, or a group, or be willing to gather people. The act of forming a group was gameplay in itself. Who would work with who? And because it was still a novel experience, it was well received by many gamers. Now, the game designers needed to make the game available to the widest audience, and this means removing any barriers to entry without compromising the atmosphere and integrity of the game. And
except for they did. That's the problem. That sounds really good. Let's just do everything and make everything better without any sort of setbacks or drawbacks at all. Yeah, it's just like... It's just so bad, man. What are you trying to clear a raid? LFR raid with LFR on stream, back up words. You really want me to clear LFR on stream? I don't think I want to do that, man. Like, it's just a waste of time. What he's saying is like, it is very, very true. Trying to appeal to more people, like, I think that a lot of games do this now, is they try to appeal to more and more people until they get to such a broad appeal that it ends up alienating the original audience. No, it's not going to be a real experience because people are going to see my name. There's going to be people messaging other people in the raid that I'm in the raid streaming it. Like, it's not going to be what you think it's going to be, guys.
Group Finder was the closest solution. Now, everyone could form a group without needing to socialize. This advancement removed the forming a group social aspect of the experience, which pushed the MMO design further from socialization and more toward gameplay. Another attraction of the solo playstyle was the ability to remove the reliance on other players to progress. If you as a player only have 30 minutes to an hour to play and the game is based around social progression or social achievement, then if you fail to form a group or find others willing to help you within your short play session, you don't actually get to do anything. If your 30 minutes playing is spent entirely in the main city shouting for a group to go and do the content you want to do, even if that is creating your own fun, or you get invited to a larger group to do more complex stuff, but you know you won't be able to finish it due to your own time and won't get the end reward, eventually you become demotivated to log on at all. The designers needed to make an experience where newer players, or older players with less time as life goes on, would still be able to log into the game and do something. Back in the early
they make the game like any game. I feel like this is what it is. Any game that starts catering to hold old players rather than attract new players by making the game easier, like the way WoW has been like, oh well, we're gonna make this easier because now our players are getting older, etc. I think that's always a mistake, because at that point you decide that your audience is aging and is going to die. I would much rather them have the perspective of, let's give the new players today the experience that makes the old players what they are. Neats in chat. Yeah. It's just like, I'd rather them create that new experience rather than just try to keep old subs on life support by making the game progressively easier and easier and easier. Because I don't think it works. It just makes everybody lazy.
Days when games were glorified chat rooms, this wasn't necessarily an issue because you could do whatever you want in those 30 minutes. But with gameplay taking more of a focus, the ability to actually experience some gameplay every play session, no matter how short, dictated the need to remove relying on other people as heavily. This attempt of the genre to cater to the solo player and to grab the new market demographic instead of relying solely on players who wanted a social game actually created a rather powerful feedback loop. Games design shifted to allow solo players to compete with social players, which in turn means the game can now attract more solo players. But these solo players don't socialize, meaning even more systems now needed to be added to support them being able to access all the content. The MMO became...
You could have never had Raid Finder if you didn't have Dungeon Finder. It's basically... It's like a progressive loop of gateway drugs. Like it sounds stupid, but that's really what it is. Is like you get people that just get like, they get more and more and more lazy.
So focused on allowing everyone to play it and removing all barriers to entry, it removed a core component of what made it attractive in the first place. In order to attract more players, they removed the need to communicate, despite the fact the early players were attracted by the need to communicate. With groups now being so easy to form and personal reputation on a server being all but forgotten, players could now look at other players not simply as important people, but as replaceable group members. Where before it would take 20 to 30 minutes to find a full group, so you were willing to...
This is exactly why people get mad about shit like gear score and things like Raider.io. Because you're not like, you don't know anybody anymore. You don't... There's no like real connection that you have. You're a number. And if your number isn't big enough, they get rid of your number and they bring in somebody else's number and they use that number instead. That's it. It's completely impersonal. It's just soulless, and it's also forgettable.
Fail a few times and work with what you had, you can now instantly remove someone from a group and know they will be replaced rather quickly.
It's like exactly like back in vanilla WoW. I used this example before. Like if you're in Scarlet Monastery and your alliance and your tank is stupid, it's actually going to be faster for you to teach that tank how to play the entire game than for you to get a new tank in there. That kind of stuff matters.
Advantages and benefits of being social or well-known were now replaced with the in-game automated systems. When a community has no reason to communicate, no tangible advantage to talking that isn't provided by something in the game anyway, combined with how the MMO design philosophy has been moving toward enabling solo play for years, you end up with a lot of players not talking. A society bigger than any seen in any MMO before, not being social. Because there's really no need to be. But, and this is a really important...
You ever have people get annoyed in groups whenever you talk and you're like, hey guys, what's up? And you try to start conversations and then they get annoyed because you're not just playing the game. That's the world that we live in with MMOs nowadays, because people are conditioned to play like that.
Fact that a lot of people don't seem to realise. Just because social interaction within the games themselves has reduced does not mean that interaction or socialisation within the genre has reduced. I actually think the opposite. I think it's increased, we just don't immediately see it. Remember how back in the early days, online communication was limited to message boards and forums, and then the MMO came along to show a bright and shiny new alternative? Well, the online communication market shifted then, and it's shifted again now, away from MMOs and towards social media, video sharing sites, and third-party chat programs like...
Lots of third-party things. We are one of those. We are the new community. This Twitch channel is one of those new communities that he's talking about, where you have a bunch of people who are just all talking and hanging out together. And I think that's why a lot of people, I see this, like I'll give you a really interesting and cool example. So there are some people that will request invite to my parties, and these are people who are like my stream viewers, and I do raids with them regularly. And here's the coolest fucking thing, man, is whenever one of them requests invite, or I invite one of them, and then their friend requests invite in, and I see the person they are now friends with is also another person who I know, you know, they probably came together and met each other through my stream. I've seen this happen recently, and it's fucking badass. Like, because that means those two people met, like, you know, through like my stream community, and now they're actual friends with each other. That's badass. And he's right that, like, obviously some of that socialization has shifted. And I remember people even told me, they're like, yeah, I stopped playing WoW whenever you were playing because I'd always join your raids, and now you're not doing anything, so fuck. You know, they stopped playing the game. And I think that if you take away that social infrastructure, you do lose a lot of people. And that social infrastructure can be Discord. That social infrastructure could be, you know, Twitch, could be YouTube. But I think primarily it's like Discord and Reddit, especially for just more average people.
Skype, Discord, or WhatsApp. Communication in MMOs between people used to happen within the game itself because they were, at the time, one of the best places to communicate. One of the only places. And over the years, many MMOs have actually added new features that make communication within them easier than ever.
Like the
private messages, guild chat, friend chat, clan chat, cross-server grouping, voice chat, party chat, in-game mail. There are more ways than ever to actually communicate and be social within MMO games, so it's not like you can't do it. So why aren't people using them as much? And well, it's simply because the MMO now focuses on the gameplay and the social side is being picked up elsewhere. Like here. You're watching a YouTube video.
I think this is really bad that MMOs expect these third-party websites to take on the responsibility of being social, because I think by the nature of the third-party websites existing and people using them, the person has to be invested in the game enough to want to use third-party websites. And because many people don't get invested in the game enough to use third-party websites, and they're not serious gamers enough, they don't ever even have that experience because it's kind of out of their reach and the scope of what they would do as a casual player. So I think that, like, while this Discord and stuff is cool, not having it in game is really, really bad. And you have to have it in game, or you're going to miss a huge portion of people that are just casual players, that they don't have Discord, they don't download Discord, they're just playing this game. That's it.
Right now about MMOs. If you're watching during the premiere, you're likely watching with hundreds of other people, probably all talking together. Then there are Discord servers around the world for clans and guilds.
True.
Facebook groups dedicated to games or strange ways of playing the games. Twitch streams and communities built around them. Or YouTube playthrough series that we all collectively come together to enjoy. The question of have MMOs become less social is a complex one. Because while yes, the social aspects of the genre used to be focused on and are now afterthoughts, meaning communication within the games themselves is very sparse, the social aspects that have been built up around the genre is bigger than ever. YouTubers, Twitch streamers, films, books, conventions, Twitter. The MMO is still a popular genre. The social aspect has simply moved out of the game and onto the platforms specifically designed for social.
I think that's only partially true, because the reality is, like, MMOs are not that great for viewership. Like, compared to FPS games, or compared to even sports games, or compared to like a game like Minecraft, etc. All of these other games are way higher viewership like ceilings than MMOs. So you can say, like, yeah, there's people that stream MMOs and they do well, but the people that stream other types of games do a lot better. It's because there's not as many people playing them.
So if you say that the MMO is no longer social, I would in some ways agree. The MMO game itself is not focused on socialization anymore. But I would also disagree, because the MMO game is now focused on gameplay and the social aspect is being picked up by other programs. If you want to recapture the social aspect of an MMO, or get back to those good old days of actually talking to people, you might need to look toward the MMO for the gameplay part, and then outside of the game for the connection part.
Which I think is so bad.
For example, if you'd like to join our Discord and talk about MMOs, or come and play with us sometime, we have a Discord open to all. The link's in the video, and we'd be happy to chat with you. I truly think that modern MMOs aren't placing socialization front and center like they used to, but there are still many MMO gamers being social. So how do you feel about this? Do you think the genre's design shift from social interaction toward gameplay to accommodate new players, with third-party programs picking up the social slack, is a good thing? Or should MMOs have remained hubs of socializing and force solo players to integrate into clans, groups or guild to make sure the society stays front and center? Let me know in the comments below.
Okay, so I do think that the game's socialization has to occur in the game, or you just miss a huge amount of people who are too casual to ever hit that third party level. Many people that are super casual about games never do that, and they will never get that experience if that's what you expect to have. So while I think what he's saying is true, I don't think that it's good for MMOs. And I think that's why, for example, a lot of people really liked Ashes of Creation and the idea of like how many social systems it had. And they also liked the idea of New World and the fact that it had proximity voice chat. These two things are positives, and I think that it does indicate that people do want to have a closed system inside of the game that they can just interact with people in. Proximity voice, yeah, I think any game that doesn't have proximity voice chat is a shit game, okay? Like, any game, every game should have proximity voice chat. If you don't have proximity voice chat, dog shit. That's what should happen. You should always have that, man. WoW, yeah, it should have it. Why does WoW not have it? Why can't you walk up to some dude that's doing a quest and be like, hey, what are you doing, idiot? That's what it should be. Remember whenever you had friends? Fuck, dude. I don't know. Like, I felt like, I guess streaming makes it a little bit easier for me to meet people and have friends. And I've never really had too much trouble finding or making friends as an adult. But I don't know. Maybe for other people it is a lot harder. And I also have like a lot of the same kind of interests in general that a lot of other guys do. So that's kind of another reason as well. Last online 5 years ago. Wow, only 5 years ago. And okay, see, yeah, look at that. It's a lot harder for non-streamers, man. Yeah, I'm sure it is, right? If you work some soul-crushing job for 8 hours a week, and then you get like 2 days off, and you know you don't want to spend it like trying to make friends or find new people, I can understand that. It fucking sucks. Came for the explanation, left with existential crisis. Yeah, that's about right.